Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show. The Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts is proudly sponsored by the Global Wellness HQ community. It's an online membership group where we meet, we share ideas, we share insights, and we all work together and help one another discover our own personal wellness journeys. If you'd like to join us, you can easily click the link below or scan the QR code, and we love hearing your stories, so we hope to see you in the community. Hi, everyone. Today I'm excited to have my new friend Steve Leskovec on the call. Steve, welcome to the show. Would you start by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Thanks for having me, Jeff. It's great to be here. Love the podcast you've done and love talking to your community. I'm looking forward to this. So my Reader's Digest version, I've been a registered nurse since 1989. I haven't done any patient care in the last 8 or so years. The last job I had was curriculum design for a hospital system in Pennsylvania. And that was designing the curriculum to teach the cardiology department how to use the new electronic health record. I think I got that job in part because of my master's in nursing education. When I moved back home to Ohio with my wife, she said, you're going to be without a job. You might as well try some of these bucket list items of yours. And I said, cool. I got a lovely, phenomenal wife. So part of what I wanted to do was become a published author. Now, as a Boy Scout leader, as a nurse, as a father of 3 adult children, you hear things such as, they should teach that. They should teach that in school. Whatever that is, whoever they are, it's cooking, laundry, personal care, because we know sometimes 20-year-old boys don't shower. And it's, I figured, you know what? I might as well become that person. So I wrote a curriculum, 380-page curriculum, 500 plus PowerPoint slides, and currently 64 videos done in the Toonly platform to teach these life skills to these young adults. So that, in a nutshell, is who I am.
I love it. And I think it's so powerful. We can talk about some of the life skills, and it just fascinates me. When I was a kid, I grew up on a farm, and, I learned to change oil and check batteries and things like that very early on. What are some of the most missed life skills that you're seeing right now that if people were listening could help their kids? What are the bigger areas that they should focus on?
Oh, good gracious. A lot of schools here in the States are now requiring financial literacy in school. Thank God. But that is hugely, sorely missed. These young adults don't understand the concept of living below your means, having a rainy day fund. They don't understand, taxes. The 2 things we say are certain, or death and taxes, right? And they don't get that. I've come across some young adults who haven't filed taxes in 3 years. So another one is the concept of how to go about finding a job and how to communicate on the job site. A lot of the young adults I'm seeing now are actually walking away from jobs because their boss was mean to them. Well, not a lot of people have a great boss. You just got to muscle through it. Communication is another thing, and for the audience who is listening, I am holding up my cell phone saying this is one of the biggest detriments, I think, to communication in society today. They're sitting right next to each other and communicating by text. They don't talk to each other. Those relationships are starting to be missed. I've got a, little bit there. I did a module on personal care skills, which includes some nutrition, some time management and stuff, and actually how to take care of your home. So up here in Cleveland, and you're in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, there's a filter in your furnace that needs to be changed occasionally. But
And
these
how
kids are,
occasionally?
well, it depends on the filter. It depends on the furnace. I use a less expensive filter and I change it monthly. So, and you're exactly correct. And how do you get to it to change the filter? Where is that filter? So, a lot of these things, these kids aren't learning. If I'm going to pick the top three, I want to tell you it's work stuff, it's money stuff, and it's communication stuff.
Love that. And I think that's, if we're not helping that next generation communicate, I think one of my favorite Tony Robbins quotes is, the quality of my life is the quality of my communication. And if we're not communicating well, that tells me we're going to have a lesser quality of life. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's more than fair. Learning how to communicate is so crucial. For example, my daughter and her boyfriend just broke up and they have a child together. Neither of these kids have developed the skill of communicating, and they all in a relationship, you got a choice. You can be right or you can be happy. So
It's knowing when to pick your battles, right?
exactly. What hill you're going to die on? This is not the hill, guys. You're right. It's okay. Now I say, you're right, honey, to my wife, and she gets ticked off at me because she knows I'm just like, I disagree. But you know what? I'm not willing to sacrifice my relationship for this. We're communicating well. I understand where you are. You understand where I am. We're not going to change each other's minds. It's okay. We'll do it the way you want. It's all good, honey. Don't worry about it. So we've got that. But a rising tide raises all ships. And if we can get this stuff into our young adults who are going to be taking our places in the next X number of years, we need to kind of press it, push it, teach it. The best way that I found to do that currently in the current environment is in the school system, or as a self-study program. I've created a self-study so it doesn't have to be brought into a school or into a youth group or anything. Unfortunately, the best way to teach it is through daily living, opportunistic education moments. But those are missed so often now, again, with kids having their nose in their phones and parents having their nose in their phones. It's a tough thing to do. So, we run, like I said, the best in today's environment, which is, in my opinion, second best, is actually teaching them.
And I think that's, whether you think you're teaching them or you don't think you're teaching them, you're teaching them.
Oh, everything that comes out of your mouth is teaching them.
I cringe when I see families sitting at a table in a restaurant silently while everybody's texting. I'm smart enough across the room. I know the difference between texting and randomly scrolling on social, because texting, the fingers are moving, but when they're scrolling, you can see and it saddens me when the family conversation is lost.
Oh, I agree. My wife has a pretty high profile job, and she does get emails frequently off hours or calls or has to search something up. And I understand there's a work thing there, but we had to have the conversation. If I'm sitting at a table with you at dinner, honey, I don't know what to do with myself. I sit there and I stare at the wall while you're messing around on your phone. And she got it immediately, said, oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. And now the phones go down. If a call comes in, I look at the number or she looks at the number. I can get that later. We put it aside and we get that later. There are obviously some calls you have to take, but which is fine. But we've got to face each other. We've got to talk to each other. We've got to learn to communicate with each other. We've got to learn to form those personal relationships. And you mentioned Tony Robbins. He's huge into that.
Yeah.
Huge. And I've been trying to work with my kids on that. My kids are playing on the phone when I'm talking to them. I'm like, put that thing down. Oy.
It's funny. I hate to think I'm that unique, but one of my favorite things, I drive my kids to school. And the reason I do is they've got nothing else to do, nowhere else to be. That's my most precious time of my day, is dropping them off, picking them up, because we talk. And
Captive audience, you have to listen to me, boy.
unless you're jumping out at the light, I got you. But I'd like to say that they like it and appreciate it too, because we're actually having a conversation. But interestingly enough, most of our conversations are about conversations. Like
Wow.
I'm a very weird individual, but I view my life, if you ask either of my kids, my single greatest job, my greatest gift, my greatest purpose in life is to make their lives easier. Literally, you ask them, they'll say that verbatim. What's dad's job? To make my life easier. And, so instead of lecturing to them and telling them what they should do, we talk about whatever's going on at school, and we ask them how they handled it, and then I ask them what they would have done differently. We have very interesting conversations, and I can't help but think that most of their classmates never get anything remotely like that.
Well, it sounds to me like you're not making their lives easier by doing it for them, but it sounds like you're giving them the tools they need.
Yeah.
We could dig a hole with our hands, but it's a lot easier if you give me a shovel.
Yeah.
So
And
you're
here's the
giving,
keys to the backhoe if you need it.
yeah, oh boy, I'm coming to visit you. That sounds like fun. But but yeah, you're teaching them the tools they need
Yeah.
to be able to have that easy life, to be able to have that quality of life, to be able to not have to worry. I'm going to go back to the money thing. The first module, and I give that away on the website for free as a test drive. But creating a budget, a lot of people think a budget is chains, but no, it's not chaining you up, and it's actually a tool to give you permission to spend your money on what you find important, such as electric, gas, car insurance, and what you want. You can budget yourself, for example, $50 a week, and that's your blow money. You blow that on whatever you want. You have permission to spend that money the way you want without having to get permission from your budget or you, because you already got it. So it's a tool, and that's what I've been trying to do here. Exactly. You are not weird. Well, you might be weird, but you're in the same club as me, because that's my goal. And I have these opportunistic things. I had to drive my kids to school. There was no buses from where I lived. And I really enjoyed the time just conversing with them.
And that's the thing. Like I know a lot of older generation who lament that their kids never call, never come home to visit. Um, Sorry, but I feel like we plant those seeds when they're young. If we don't have time
Yes.
for them, they're not going to have time for us.
Yes. Yes. And if we find ourselves, as we said, every word you say, every action you do, if we find ourselves making ourselves too busy, saying another way, they're going to learn how to make themselves too busy to visit you.
Yeah. And it's kind of a weird thing and an unusual thing, but we talk about how I could be better. And one of my favorite discoveries, a lot of people talk about how we educate our kids. It's like it's a one-way street. I picture the mama bird regurgitating worms into the baby bird's mouth. But if we're humble enough, kids will teach you so many valuable lessons. And I'm going to share one from the playground. My 10-year-old walked up to some new kid that was new to his school and said, "I don't know you. My name's Nate. Can we be friends?"
Oh, that's
And
cool.
it was like, I almost cried. I was like, oh my God, why do adults make it so complicated? The salespeople are like, oh, what's my angle? What's my pitch? What's my opening? And it's like, when did we distance ourselves from being good humans? When did we stop being polite, friendly?
Again, for the listeners, I'm holding up my phone.
I
we,
no
we,
offense to the iPhone, but whatever date that was invented, humanity started a huge downslide when we went to the smartphone.
yeah, it did. Again, well, even the computer age, and I'm not slamming on the computer. It's a phenomenal tool.
Yeah.
The phone is a phenomenal tool, but you got to use the tool appropriately. How are you going to feel if you'll see me walking around the mall or walking around Walmart just carrying my shovel because I love my shovel? Not an appropriate use of the tool. Scrape off the shelves and dump it in the cart, right? No, it's a tool, but it's got to be used properly at the appropriate times. And while find our Zoom connection today, we're significantly distanced apart. I'm in Ohio in the US, you're in Canada.
Yeah.
We can communicate and have a great conversation because of it. But when you're face to face next to somebody, put the stinking thing down, please.
Yeah. And it's a small thing, but I had heard some etiquette person, and a lot of people put it face down on the table, which to them signifies, I'm turning this off more or less. But they said if it's really important, and if you're face to face with somebody, put it in your pocket, because
Yes,
if it's accessible and in reach, you're gonna unconsciously maybe reach for it and check it, but it also signals to the person you're meeting with, if something more important than you comes up, I'm taking it.
right.
And
Exactly.
unless you're on call and somehow you save lives, put the phone away. And um I don't know if you've heard this, but I actually saw a study. They took relatively young babies, I think it was 6 months or something, and they did a scientific study around the parents' inattention to the child. And it was
Hmm.
fascinating because what they did was, and I'm not generally in favor of experimenting with children, but this one was interesting. The father would engage with the kid, and the baby would be very happy and smiley and bubbly. And then at random points in the observation, the father would pick up his phone and ignore the child for 60 seconds. And it was amazing how that kid would completely fall apart because they're instinctively competing with that device for dad's attention.
Right.
And I'm like, if a 6-month-old is that impacted, imagine a 4-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 20-year-old. Like,
Right.
and to
The 40 and
intimate,
50-year-old.
yeah, intimate relationships. If your partner is always checking their device, it doesn't take long. You said you're staring at the wall and you're bored. The greatest gift we can give another human being is our attention.
Right.
And the
Right.
meanest thing we can do is take that attention away.
Right. And which is actually, that's more apathy, and that's the opposite of love, not hate.
Yeah.
That's the worst. And as we go through these times, again, communication being so important, we have to learn to be able to talk to those who are important in our lives, provided we're demonstrating it and putting our phones down ourselves about, hey, when you're on the phone and we're sitting here at a restaurant together, I kind of feel second class. And I know the other person's intention is not to make you feel that way. They simply
Yeah.
might not even know it. But when you call it out there, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. I'm so sorry. Put
Yeah.
the phone down. So have that conversation. It doesn't need to be a difficult conversation. You can gently and lovingly share your feelings and your thoughts with somebody without coming at them like, put that dang thing down.
Yeah.
You're insulting me. I'm offended. Yeah, get over that. But talk to them, communicate, and it gets easier the more you do it.
And I think it gets harder the less you do it. So
Yep.
the choice is easy, and it is a choice, right?
Everything is a choice, and all choices have consequences, don't they?
Now, what I love about the podcast is I can go on any tangent, and I get to talk to fascinating people like Steve.
Thank
Um,
you.
I think communication, if I could raise a flag and say this is the one thing we're losing as a society, it is communication. And I find it ironic because we have all of these ways to be in touch, but instead of being there present, and I'll tell you, Steve, we almost had a rebellion. I watched the movie, I think it was called Social Media or something, and it was talking about the effects of social media on human brains.
Hmm.
So I came out of it, and we had a family vote, and we voted that Sundays are technology free days. And
Nice.
it's I had the most resistance from my wife, but my kids also resisted. But it's amazing that one day a week, just disconnecting our brain from the hive and talking, and we do things like go for walks, we play board games, we have breakfast together. It's amazing what one day a week impact has had on our family, and it fascinates me when I tell other people. They go, "Oh, that's interesting. I'd never do it." And
Oh, but it's so it's so worth it. I caught myself, and listeners, ask yourselves, how often are you on social media? And I'm going to pull out Facebook just to call one of them out.
yeah,
How often are you on that? Are you on Facebook while you're sitting at a stoplight? Are you on Facebook when you're using the bathroom? Are you on Facebook while you get home from work, waiting for dinner to be ready? How often are you on social media? I realized that I was either doing some work, doing some housework, or on social media. I stopped using Facebook. I went through withdrawal for about 2 days, but I find myself to be a lot less angry and anxious now because I'm not seeing all the garbage on there that people are throwing out.
yeah,
It's these sites are I connected with you, Jeff, through LinkedIn, and I see the professionalism in there. But even on LinkedIn, you're still getting political opinions, religious views, those sorts of things. And you've got people arguing with each other.
yeah,
Well, it's a lot easier to argue with somebody and have a fight with them when you can't see their face. So, much of the social media is calling people names, bringing them down. Yeah, let's go as far as to say cyberbullying.
yeah,
So I found myself to be a lot happier now that I do have a very, very small Facebook page. It's just for some of my people I work with and my wife, et cetera, to share information with me, work wise. I'm not even on social media with family and such right now. So I don't clear out the notifications and stuff.
yeah.
But it, let it go. Challenge yourself to let it go for 1 week and see if you don't feel better and if you can't do it, because you can.
Well, I'll tell you, Stephen, and for my listeners, this is totally unrehearsed. I broke up with the algorithms. That was my New Year's resolution, and I shut down Facebook completely.
Hmm.
And on LinkedIn, I turned off all notifications. So LinkedIn is a focus tool for me to connect with people, but I'm not spending any time on it. And the other thing is I uninstalled it from my phone. So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I'm working, I'm at my computer, I'm on LinkedIn. When I'm not working and I'm wandering around the world with my phone, I literally only use my phone to communicate with family and to Google things when I get lost or
Right.
need to find something. But the algorithms, it's a lazy choice. If we just let the algorithms think for us, next thing you know, you're 10 hours into Facebook or YouTube or whatever. Um, I use them as tools, and I say, tool, this is what I need, please give it to me, rather than that mindless, I joke about the zombies on their cell phones. Um, I'm going to admit to a little bit of perverse pleasure if somebody's about to walk into a tree when I'm driving and they're
Oh,
staring at their phones.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
I like honking because it scares the hell out of them. But in all fairness, I'm saving them from walking into a thing, right?
That's phenomenal. I love that. I love that.
And it
Uh,
just bothers me
so
when families are walking and everybody's on their phone. It's like, put the phone down.
So I one of the things in the book I cover in time management is a priority square. And I'll describe it. In the upper left-hand corner Well, across the top, you've got urgent and non-urgent, and then along the left side, you've got important and not important. Upper left-hand corner is the urgent and important. Those are things like meeting your boss, medical emergency. I mean, you have no choice. You have to stop what you're doing and do it now. Next to that on the upper right is important, but not urgent. They're low priority, but very high impact. So we're talking schoolwork or getting a work project done, doing your car maintenance so you don't get broken down at the side of the road, and even events like going out with friends. So then we come down to the bottom right-hand corner, which is not urgent and not important. That's your TV, that's your social media, those are your video games, that sort of stuff. It's just time fillers. It's maybe some fun stuff, but low priority, low impact on your life. What you're talking about is the bottom left square, which is not important, but urgent. You get a ding on your phone for a text, you have to look at it, don't you?
Yeah.
Can't let it go. It's urgent. It's really not important. Interruptions, distractions, things like that. So I'm feeling exactly what you're saying, and I do kind of sit there and snicker when I see them walking into polls. And sometimes if I'm walking down the sidewalk and someone is just messing on their phone, I will just stop dead in my tracks and see if they actually walk into me.
Yeah.
It's horrible. What's wrong with us, dude?
Sorry, Steve, but my 10-year-old and I, we love going to the mall and watching kids walk into each other. It is priceless.
That's
And,
awesome.
like, they're little robots, and it's like, it's like watching a little Roomba, they walk around.
Yeah.
This wasn't part of the agenda, but one of the things that really, really concerns me is the addictive nature of, first of all, the devices that we carry, but second of all, the social media on those devices. And I want to get your take on it, because one of the things I realize, and this is what I got out of the social media, I think maybe it was the social dilemma, something like that. One of the engineers at Facebook was interviewed, and they said, we told the algorithm we wanted people to spend as much time as possible on the platform, figure it out. And the algorithm started figuring things out, and it was working on, content messaging, blah, blah, blah. And then the algorithm started to say, aha, human beings are highly addictive. If we addict people to our devices, to our social media, problem solved. And somewhere around there, the algorithm locked the developers out and said, you don't need to see what we're doing here anymore. So if you think about the single-minded purpose of an artificial intelligence, it's to achieve whatever outcome you set. Now,
Are we already living with Skynet?
I kind of feel like Skynet's there. But what are you seeing in terms of, and maybe you're not seeing it yet, but in terms of addiction to devices or addiction to content?
As I said, when I left Facebook, I went through 2 or 3 days of withdrawal. I kept grabbing my phone and going to, oh yeah, put the phone down. It was a habit. It was automatic. I had to consciously change my behavior.
Yeah.
And it like, again, I was addicted. I went through withdrawal for 2 to 3 days, and it still took me up to 2 weeks not to just reach for that phone and put on and tap the Facebook app.
Yeah.
So this is absolutely true. I have seen, I can't quote them now because, again, we're off script. I have seen studies showing actual changes by MRI and EEG in brainwave patterns with technology. So they're out there. The evidence is there, and it's undeniable. I've like I said, I've got a master's in nursing education. Part of what I did, part of my training was learning how to read research. And the studies that I saw, as far as I can recollect, were done very, very well. And we didn't have too much conflict of interest in them, which you always have a touch in every study, no big deal. But the sample sizes were large. The way they did it was great. It's out there. The evidence is there. Now, we've got with the advent of, and I'm not going to go too deep into this because I know this is a polarized subject, but the advent of medical marijuana and recreational marijuana being made legal in a number of states here in the States, and in some provinces in Canada, we're seeing people that are, I need this for my anxiety. And more people are having anxiety and needing this. The diagnoses of anxiety and other mental health disorders is skyrocketing. Now, is that because we just didn't recognize it before? Or is it because maybe there's some sort of outside factor, one of the nature factors like our technology?
Yeah.
Is it because we're not communicating and forming those relationships with others because we're using technology as our everything instead of putting it down and forming those relationships? I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
But we're seeing these things, my opinion, and I'll give it to you just as my opinion, being a nurse for over 30 years and seeing it and being a college professor and having kids myself and being a Boy Scout leader, pulling from all these areas. I'm holding up my phone again, folks. It's it's technology. I think we are not learning to be with each other, and we are by ourselves. We are all getting bullied in some way or another. And it's like taking your fingernail and scratching at a wall. Just little bit by little bit by little bit, eventually you'll make a hole.
Love it. And I think that's just recognizing the importance. And, I find it fascinating that, humans have been spinning around on this planet for 200,000 some years. And for the last 20, we've been attached to technology. Like we literally we haven't evolved to be part of this. There's some people out there that want to embed chips in our brains, and I will die before that happens. I will not have.
Preach it.
I don't want to be chipped. I feel like, first of all, what is that extra electricity going to do to my little gray matter? But I need an off switch from the world. And, my off switch, I take my kids, we go sit on a riverbank and we throw rocks in the river and we watch the leaves and tree branches float down. If I have a chip embedded in my brain, I can't forget that in my car. So I fear for that. But my big takeaway, and I'll let you rant as well, but I think if we could turn off the tech and, start with an hour a day, start with 1 day a week, start with 1 week a month, start somewhere, but just check in with yourself and see, how do I feel? I mean, I can't tell you, as Steve mentioned, when I closed my Facebook account, I had this fear. What am I missing? What's going on? And for a week, it was a reminder, okay, don't check. Because when you close a Facebook account, if you come back to it, it reinstates everything. So I think there's a 3-month window. And I now have the discipline. If you're not on LinkedIn, we don't need to talk. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with your decision not to be there. But I don't want too many platforms beeping and bopping and telling me where to go.
Right. Well, two things that have come to mind while you were talking. Some personal stuff. I've got a daughter with some mental health issues. She's been admitted a few times to the psychiatric hospitals for treatment. Without going into too many details, this is my daughter that's given me my granddaughter. Oh, light of my life. Anyway, she broke up with her boyfriend. She moved in here for the past 5 weeks. They were living in a rental unit that I owned. And as of yesterday, I was finally able to get him out of the property. And yes, I'll qualify this. I did everything legally. No threats.
The shovel was not involved. Let's just say that.
The shovel was left home. That tool was left home.
Steve used his
Um,
words.
I did. I communicated. So one of the other tenants on the property, my daughter reached out to him with the question, is he still there? He texted her a picture of the guy's car. Now, the guy's car is actually the guy's car is parked on the neighbor's property. So he's not on my property. And my daughter is still living with me. So it's not a matter of him being there stalking with her. We've got to do some work on the apartment before we can move her back in.
Yeah.
But that sent her over the edge, sent her into a tizzy to the point where blah, 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 step, step, step. We had to send her to the emergency room for crisis with the police last night. Now she got discharged and she came back out and she'll be better. She's still on her meds and counseling and all that. But if that technology was not available and used for that, we would not have had this decompensation. And my counselor, her yesterday, I was coaching her, let it go. Let it go. It doesn't affect you today, but she had to know because we have the tech and tech is drama.
Yep.
It's just, and regards to the social media and the Facebook stuff, again, when I got off of it, I was less angry. Now, we had some stuff going on over the past number of months. I had some damage to the house from a dishwasher leak. Working on the project, getting the life skills. I'm constructing a workout room for my wife here in the basement. My daughter and her former boyfriend were fighting all the time. There's a baby involved, blah, blah, blah. I found myself in the ER with a bleeding stomach ulcer. There is nothing like a stomach ulcer to change your perspective on what you need to know and don't need to know. So my son will call me and my son called me. He is driving from Ohio to South Carolina a couple weekends ago. And he says, "Hey, Dad, I want your opinion." I said, "Okay. I'm thinking of strapping my smoker into the back of my pickup and smoking meat as I'm driving down to South Carolina."
You know, Steve, smoker is the perfect metaphor for life. The good things are worth waiting for.
Truth, but I told him, that's stupid. You are going to get pulled over. It's going to be bad, or it's going to burn your truck. Just don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he started arguing with me. And the ulcer boy over here says, "Dude, you asked for my opinion. Do what you want to do.
Yeah.
I've given it to you." So I tell my wife this story. She goes, "Well, is he going to do it?" I don't know. I didn't ask because there are things I don't want the answer to.
I feel like that's going to end up on one of those YouTube epic fails channels. You know, somebody's going to be taking a video of this truck driving down the highway with smoke. But by the way, I'm curious to see how he'd maintain heat at distance because, you know, unless he puts it right in the bed and covers it, you're going to get wind coming through and messing with your coals. But also the explosive mixture of fire and gasoline.
You know what? As soon as I hung up, what came to mind was, good Lord, I'm going to see my son on the Darwin Awards.
I was thinking it. I didn't want to say it.
I'll say it. I'll go there.
You're his father. You can say that. By the way, I've taught my kids, you can do anything you want in life. Just please don't win a Darwin Award.
Oh, good Lord, yes.
and I'm not kidding, but my 10-year-old will be driving down the street. He'll see somebody and be like, "Oh, that guy's going to get a Darwin Award soon." And
oh, that's funny. That's like, funny.
These are car conversations, not conversations you have at school with your classmates. Just to be clear.
Right. Something again. The other side of the coin is some things are better not shared.
Yep.
And that's also part of communication as well.
Yep.
You know, my tenant over there should not have shared. Well, Rachel and my oldest daughter ended up texting the neighbor saying, "Get him out of there, blah, blah, blah." The neighbor shared that with the former boyfriend. Sometimes there are things you just keep to yourself, because what you've done is you created drama. You've given me a very late night, and you've created emotional stress everywhere just by your participation, thinking you're helping, but you are not.
Yeah.
So again, that's a personal experience that happened last night. It is what it is.
All right. Well, Steve, you and I could talk for hours, and
Yeah, man.
it is fascinating, the life skills, and I am a huge supporter of the work you're doing. I think, we train our kids to be the adults that we train them to be, good or bad. And so I think
Right.
giving them some skills. How can my listeners get in touch with you? I have people who would support you, who would share your message. How can my listeners get in touch with you and learn more about your book and the amazing things you're doing?
Thank you so much for asking. You can simply go to my website, www.thelifeskillscurriculum.com. From there, you can access all our social media. You can also see the setup we have as far as you can purchase a module, you can purchase one of the 5 classes, you can purchase the entire curriculum, but there's also a button there for enterprise. So if you want to teach this to a much larger group, say maybe a group home just getting out of criminal justice system, or a youth group, or even a homeschooling group, could tap that, click on the enterprise button, reach out to us, and we'll get you squared away. Check out our social media on LinkedIn. We are on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, because I was told we have to do all that. So I said, okay, we'll do that. So you can find us there. But www.thelifeskillscurriculum.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for being on the show today, Steve. And I value your contribution to humanity. So thank you for that as well.
A rising tide raises all ships, brother.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to either click the link below or scan the QR code to register and listen to other episodes of our podcast. Or if you think your business or you would be a great guest to be on our show, we're always looking for experts in one of the 9 elements of holistic wellness. We'd love to have you. You can either click the link below, or you can scan the QR code and complete our speaker intake form. Thank you, and to your wellness.